Hi, and welcome to Highbrow, Lowbrow. I'm your host, Shaun. Alongside me here is Roun Sensei. Each week we get together to discuss a well-regarded, highly acclaimed film alongside a popular blockbuster.
Basically an artsy-fartsy film versus a mindless good time.
Yep. Since we're all stuck home together during quarantine, we hope you spend some time with us as we watch some interesting movies. Ron, how's your quarantine been treating you?
Well, as from the last episode, I had to cut my own hair, but as you can see, no mohawk right here.
Yeah, so you didn't bick it, no mohawk, you're a normal guy now.
Normal guy under the man's boots, still with capitalism here. If society ever goes down, I'll have that mohawk with the assless chaps.
Speaking of which, Ron, what are we talking about this week?
This episode, we're going to be doing dystopian films.
First up is Watership Down.
Cheers.
Cheers. Directed by Martin Rosen and John Hubley, Richard Adams' Watership Down is a story about a group of rabbits who flee their doomed warren and face many dangers to find and protect their new home.
So Shaun, what makes you choose Watership Down for a dystopian film?
I've heard a lot about Watership Down, and it's sort of being this tale of a disturbed animated tale, and I wanted to know what exactly it was about. And then when I was looking up ideas for dystopian films, Watership Down was one of the titles that came up within the Criterion Collection. I thought it was a really interesting choice to pick because I've heard so many tales about it and how there's so many allusions to different things like communism or Nazi or fascism in some form or fashion. So I was curious as to see how that would play out in the story and why this Watership Down was so notorious in certain circles. What did you think of the film?
The fact that you picked it for a dystopian film, granting the fact that it is also based off of a novel, makes it very, very interesting in the way that you put them together. So for this one, have you ever read the novel?
I have not read the novel.
Okay, all right. So we both went in here blind, right? We didn't know what to expect. I've never read the novel as well. I thought the movie was very, very experimental. I really liked the way it was done. I liked the chances that it took. I liked the pacing as well. It had the old school kind of, it still goes into the whole narrative of there's an all is lost moment, and suddenly they have to get together and then just push through just to get that happy ending. So it had that. Whether or not it did in the novel or whatever, I thought the movie performed very well. But yeah, it's a very interesting thing, especially for a dystopian film. It's a dystopian for the rabbits.
Yes. See, this is what I find most interesting. I mean, I had some idea of what it would be like, but I think what makes it so dystopian is the fact that the rabbits are such an inherently weak being. They're painted as these beings that are constantly hunted down and attacked and just in fear of their life throughout the entirety of the film. They're meant to be killed almost. So throughout the movie, they give hints that the world that they exist in is like the normal world. It's just like a couple farmers walking around their farm and just taking care of business like they usually do. But for the rabbits, this is like a fucking nightmare. It's horrible. Like, and they, a meadow is like the dooming gloom. Like, new development is their like hell. There's like death cults. There's like a death cult rabbit or death cult for rabbits, where they're just hanging out near the farm because they can get some scraps, but they know they're going to die and they've accepted this fate. So death and fear of death permeates the thing, and they're just trying to survive and trying to make their way through. And also, interestingly enough, they acknowledge the brutality of the world. They live with it, they deal with it, and they just exist within it. And it's an interesting take on dystopian because with most dystopian films, you have some sort of light at the end of the tunnel. And this film does have that, but in general, the world is inherently harsh to you, and that's just the fact of the matter.
The danger of the outside world is abundant. It's right there, but more present is the danger of the other rabbits.
What I wanted to get into next was the characters. What did you think of the overall story? I like the little fairy tale in the beginning. How did you feel like the other characters developed throughout the story?
So, Watership Down to me is very, very much like a fable, in a way that it's not really interested in the characters, which is my complaint, minor complaint. I really liked the movie, but it didn't really push for good characters, except for what's his name, the guy,
Bigwig.
Bigwig.
Yeah.
Bigwig, I felt, and the bird are the main kind of like characters that you can kind of
the biggest characters.
Yeah, you vouch for them, and you're like, okay, well, I want these guys to survive. But for the most part, the characters act like characters in a fable, in that there's not much anything going on. They're more interested in
fulfilling a role,
and then getting that point across of the moral at the end of the story.
All the world will be your enemy, prince with 1,000 enemies. Be cunning, and your people will never be destroyed.
That's our review of Watership Down. Next up is my pick, Starship Troopers. Starship Troopers is a 1997 American satirical military science fiction action film directed by Paul Verhoeven and written by Edward Neumeier. The story follows a young soldier named Johnny Rico and his exploits in the Mobile Infantry Unit against the backdrop of an interstellar war between mankind and an insectoid species known as arachnids.
All right, Ron, so why'd you pick this as your lowbrow choice?
Dystopian movies often reflect a very depressed, very dark, very populace versus the system kind of thing. Starship Troopers offers something very, very different. Although it was not well received when it launched, a lot of people are very confused by it because it's blatantly stupid, but it's stupid smart.
Yeah.
In the sense that it knows what it is. It's very self-aware. It's a very self-aware movie.
I mean, yeah, I would say that this movie wasn't received for what it actually is, which in reality is sort of a parody of army propaganda film, more or less. Obviously set in the future, obviously set against some sort of different enemy that, seemingly has no good qualities about them. But the main gimmick of this movie seems to be, obviously there's a romantic story and a cross stars sort of lovers story going on. That's like somewhat the centerpiece of this movie. But I feel like the general thrust of this movie is sort of exist as this faux army propaganda film and sort of to take shots at that.
I feel like movies today, especially dystopian films recently, are very, very pro-people, such that everything is about the people and how they're suffering and about how they're good. Previous films, old school directors are not so keen about that. They do take shots of the military industrial complex and all that, but at the same time they also put the mirror in front of the people.
You know what thing I found pretty interesting though was their real breakdown between the barriers of and it was sort of interesting too. It was like boys and girls can shower together, boys and girls can play sports together. The sort of breakdown between sexes. I mean, dudes were dudes and women were women still, but they were mixing it up a lot with men and women, which I thought was an interesting commentary. I mean, I guess that was sort of referencing like a future aspect to the story in terms of how society deals with each other. I mean, they also had other elements of that too, right, with citizens versus civilians. But I thought it was interesting the whole dynamic between men and women and how that was changed and how that was sort of
right.
really equalized.
So it's very and anybody who's seen RoboCop can see the same thing, right? Like men and women, sexes, and like these jobs that used to be very male dominant or female dominant are now very, like, it doesn't matter, right? And I like that take. To be honest, I really, really like that take. I feel like that is really what society should be. Not in the militaristic way, but in that, men and women should be kind of like that. And
just fully embrace
like
showering in the same rooms and
but at the same time
being sports together, yeah.
Right, but at the same time being male and female, being men and women, and having their needs very, very upfront. I really like that, the fact that Dizzy Flores is very, very upfront about what she wants.
Yeah.
And what she wants to, she wants to get together with Rico, and she knows he is in love with another girl. Nonetheless, she's there to take it.
Overall, I thought this movie was just a lot of fun. I enjoyed the sort of parody of army propaganda film, and it's still got all those same sort of lowbrow elements, all the action, all the gore, all the sex and explosions to really sort of enjoy the film for what people perceive it to be. And then, for people that want to dig a little deeper, there's a lot to sort of dig into and discover and enjoy with that as well.
Next up, we'll talk about which movie we ended up liking more.
All right. I found this was like a little bit of a tough one. I do like Starship Troopers a lot, but ultimately, I feel like Watership Down was a more affecting film. I felt like I was a little bit scarred, really touched, really thoughtful on the perspective of Watership Down, and it made me contemplate something new and something different that I hadn't really thought of on how dystopian can mean different things to different groups. I do enjoy Starship Troopers, and I do enjoy its subtlety and in terms of its or not its real subtlety, because it's not really a subtle film, but I enjoy it in the fact that it presents this action blockbustery film, and it has this subtext of being like this propaganda film. So you would say that you still prefer Starship Troopers?
I still prefer Starship Troopers because I will watch it and I love that film. However, I'm not going to shit on Watership Down because it is a good experience, and I do recommend it. It's a recommended viewing for anybody that wants something different.
So those are our thoughts on Watership Down and Starship Troopers. Be sure to tune in next episode when we try to find out who was right,
Shaun or Roun.